Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I'm here with Josh Williamson. Josh, great to see you. The man of many events. Lots of wheels in motion over at DC, and Josh is the guy pulling the levers. It's great to see you, man.
Good to see you too, man. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of DC. Probably too much.
Josh, honestly, you're truly you're in charge of so many of these things coming up.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, I've been working at DC for a long time. I started working at DC. My first job at DC was in 2009, so it's been a while. But really like the last 6 years, ever since Rebirth started, like being around, and I've been kind of involved in like almost every event. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Right? Like I've been working as a consultant on a lot of the events, and so now finally running one and doing something a little different with it's really exciting.
That's excellent, man. God, we've already got a ton of questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can burn through a bunch of these.
And I want to encourage people to chime in with questions as well. So I don't mind getting started with these.
Yeah, I'm a wordy person, so I'm a real wordy guy. So this might take a minute, but we can burn through a bunch of these and then pause and talk about something else and come back. To it.
Yeah. Eduardo Carmanga wants to know if Hawkgirl's death will be felt by someone in the league.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, everyone who dies in issue 75, it's gonna have a major impact on not just the. I mean, just to be very clear in part of this, like there is no Justice League after Justice League 75. Like there is no Justice League. It's a major part of the story. Is that there is no Justice League in Dark Crisis. It's a big piece of the story we're telling. There is no Justice League there at all. But yeah, her death is very much felt, just like the rest of the Justice League's death is felt. And then obviously there are characters who are going to be more pissed off than others that you'll see throughout the story, particularly with her death, without getting too deep into spoilers, but you'll see.
Fair enough, man. No. And I do want to get more details about as much as you can say about the Crisis and everything.
I mean, there's no real spoilers. I was talking to the editors about this today, and we were just like, we were talking about spoilers, and he was like, "What spoilers? Like, we said what happens in it. Like, issue 75, they all die. I mean, there's no spoilers there. There's no surprise there. And I feel like if you're paying attention to what we're doing have been doing with Infinite Frontier and Justice League Incarnate, you kind of know what's happening and what's going to happen in this story, and then what's going to happen in Dark Crisis. Like, it's very much a thing that if you've been reading, you can kind of already tell what's going on. So, I saw that one about Connor Hawke. Yeah, Connor Hawke.
Does he still have his healing factor or not? And obviously, we just saw Connor in the Lazarus War and everything. Yeah,
it was in Lazarus Tournament. Yeah, and Robin.
Lazarus Tournament. Excuse me.
Yes, he does still have it. This came up a couple times when I was working on the book, and I was gonna have it in one of the issues. With that book, I really wanted to take my time with it, which is really where the first arc is essentially 12 issues long. And the tournament doesn't even end until into issue 9. And I had some other stuff with Connor I wanted to do in there, and I just ran out of room. But I'm not done telling stories with Connor, so we'll eventually get to Connor's like healing factor stuff. But yeah, it definitely still has it.
Okay, that's cool. Skinny Witch wants to know, Josh, I noticed that Kara and Stephanie are standing next to each other on one of the covers for the event, and they're also featured together on a variant cover for the upcoming World's Finest series. Now, obviously, again, this is where you can really explain maybe for people that Infinite Frontier. I've seen people complain online about other books as well about inconsistencies in canon, and I thought the new status quo was good story. Nobody cares. It's like,
I mean, that's always been the real deal. That's always been the real deal has always been good story, right? Like that's always the real thing of it. But I mean, I think people who know me, they know that I'm a continuity junkie, and it does matter to me. And I try to keep things straight as much as I can. Some things are going to slip through the cracks, but everything we've been doing, we're trying to make it feel as if it all sort of connects. And I think once you start getting deeper into Dark Crisis, you'll start seeing that has all connected, and then even some of the inconsistencies, there was a reason for it. So you just have to kind of tell as we're going through. To answer their question about Kara and Steph, I haven't written a scene with them together yet, but after reading that, I will. Like as soon as I saw that comment, I was like, oh yeah, so I'll find a place for them together.
That's outstanding, man. Absolutely. And Gar, yes, he wants to know, is this only about the death of the Justice League, or can we ask questions about Dark Crisis?
Yeah, you can ask questions about Dark Crisis. Yeah, I mean, so basically, just to give people a little background, what's going on. With Infinite Frontier Zero last year, we started kicking off this story that following Death Metal, following Rebirth, all of these things that occurred, and the universe got put back, and everyone's memories are back, and all this stuff that we thought was gone was back, but there had to become a cost to that. And Wonder Woman was trying to figure out what that cost was. She thought she kind of knew what it was, and of course she didn't. And part of that is the Great Darkness has reawakened and has been making moves. And you start seeing where these pieces come together. We did an Infinite Frontier story last year that was 6 issues long that we used to put a bunch of pieces on the table that we needed. Then we did Justice League Incarnate that got more pieces. And then I've been working on Robin and Deathstroke and Batman. And a big piece of this was like the Infinite Frontier, Justice League Incarnate parts were all about like the multiverse and the stuff that was going on outside the normal Earth Zero storylines, right? It's like the attack from the sky is how I kind of saw that. That was the attack from the sky. But then with Batman and Robin and Deathstroke and the stuff they were doing in Shadow War, that was all the attack on the ground. And by the time we get to Dark Crisis, the things that are attacking on the ground and the things that are attacking from the sky, they attack at the same time, essentially. So we're doing a book, Justice League 75, Death of the Justice League. The Justice League, they go up against Pariah and the army that he's built, and they lose. And then we get to see what the ramifications of that loss are spinning out of it and how it impacts the entire DCU. And you'll start to see where all these things, it's going to take some time for everything to line up, but you'll see how it all ties together.
Outstanding, man. No, it's exciting.
I know, it's nuts, dude. It's a lot of work. It's a lot in my head. Dude, I have like 5 different whiteboards in my office where I try to keep it all straight. Like, I'm trying to keep it all together. And I think it's so funny, like, it's funny how people will find the inconsistencies sometimes, but then we will put like hardcore clues in the books as to what is happening, like real obvious clues in the visuals or the covers. And sometimes, and I've talked before, like the solicits or the covers are misleading on purpose because I want, it's like magic, like you want to kind of like, look over here while you're really doing something over here. And all that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting to see how much we will put like hardcore clues to tell you what's coming and what is happening, and nobody finds them. But I'm hoping that when we're done with Dark Crisis, you can look back the last 2 years of the stories and be like, oh my gosh, it was all connected. Like they really were building this thing.
Outstanding, man. Okay, Jonathan and Miguel want to know, with the death of JLA coming up, are you has that changed your plans to showcase the Arrow family reunion?
No. I there's a lot of Green Arrow stuff that we're doing, and I'm really excited about. And I actually wrote a scene today that was Jason, Todd, and Roy together talking about some of the things they've been going through. So we'll definitely get to some cool Green Arrow stuff. I gotta warn people though, man, like this it's not going to be easy. Like that, this is definitely, I say it's going to be really a fun event, but there's a reason why it's called Dark Crisis. It's very much a darkness before the dawn kind of thing, and it is going to be a rough ride for some people. I always talk about this thing, like whenever, the last 6 years, the thing I would always tell people to be like, listen, it's like a roller coaster ride, right? Like, you're going to get on this thing, and it's going to be real scary, and at the end you get off, you're going to get off, and you're going to be okay. This ride is definitely going to be a little rougher for some people. It's definitely a hard ride in some places, but I think people will be surprised what it actually is once we start getting into it. It's really been interesting. Like, ever since I started working on it, I sort of anticipated some of the feelings people were going to have when we started announcing stuff.
Sure.
And I had feeling like, oh, there's gonna be some worries, some concerns, and I actually kind of wrote that into the book. Like there's a scene in issue 1 of Dark Crisis where it's them. There's a couple scenes like this where they're talking about what does death mean in the DCU. What does it mean to these characters now? There's a scene coming up where John and Nightwing, John is freaking out about the whole thing, and then Nightwing is just like, your dad died, right? Like Bruce died, Hal died, they've all died, right? Like. There's a lot of kind of meta-ness to it as well, but
that's great.
Yeah. Green Arrow, I love Green Arrow. I love the Green Arrow family. I think it's clear, you can tell I try to sneak them into everything I'm doing in some way or another. And Ollie plays a really important role in Justice League 75. So you'll see. It's gonna take some time, but you'll see.
Honestly, I understand, and I truly sympathize for people that this might be literally their first rodeo, or regardless, they just have sacred characters that they don't want hurt and they don't want to die or whatever. And my feeling is you need to let writers and artists have that moment, because I always go back to when Hickman was writing the Fantastic Four and he killed off Johnny.
Dude, we talked about this.
There you go.
Talked about this before. Yeah, Johnny, man.
I'm a broken record.
That. No, when he killed Johnny, it was funny because I reread Fantastic Four. I went on this like big Fantastic Four reread during the pandemic, right? And it was funny because I got to that issue where Johnny died, and it's such an emotional scene. But I was already, I was so far past that, like, because I was reading out of order, so I was also reading like the Dan Slott stuff. So there was no confusion that Johnny was coming back, right? There was no confusion, but Hickman did it so well. And I remember when he came back and he had like the annihilation arm or whatever.
Yes.
All that
yes.
Stuff, right? Like, it was just it's so well done. It's really well done. It is fascinating. It is fascinating to see the different, like, some people are just like, death in comic doesn't matter. And I got this other person yelling at me being like, I can't believe you would do this. So it's like, some people are like, oh, I don't care. But there are people who really care. And it's really, it's been a very interesting experience to work on a project like this and just kind of see the reactions. But to be honest with you, I would rather have the reactions.
Of course.
It's like, I don't want to people. Yeah, they care. I care.
Cares, of course.
Right? Yeah, I want them to care. I don't want them to be middling. I want them to have a reaction to it. And if you have a reaction to it and you're talking about it, that's a win. So
100%.
Yeah.
Well, like you say, really to compare it to a roller coaster, exactly. And that's why if I sound ghoulish, for those of you who are like, but please don't hurt Stephanie, for God's sake, please.
I have had there's it's hard. Like, there are times where I've had to like take a step back on the story, because I'm still a fan. I'm still a DC person, and I love these characters, and so every once in a while, when we're going through some of this stuff, I have to take a step back. Like issue 2 of Dark Crisis is pretty hard. I was talking to James about this, Tinian, and I was telling him when I was writing it, I was like, I feel like this is the meanest thing I've ever written for DC. Like, I feel like this is hard, but it works. It's all part of the story. It's all part of the roller coaster. And yeah, it's a lot, but it's fun.
Absolutely, man. Let's see here. Josh, will any of the Sandman universe characters appear in Dark Crisis?
Easy answer. No. As far as I know, who knows what could happen, but no. No one has asked me to do that yet, and I don't want to mess with any of Neil's stuff.
Okay. Wesley wants to know, he's like, I've been ready for so many decades. I can't think of a character I haven't seen die. I know this will be fun, but was there worry about death fatigue being part of the equation?
Yes. But that became part of the story, to be honest. Like I was saying, like, once we started working on it, I started, getting into the story. Like, I have this whole theory about the conversations we have with the characters are also conversations the characters probably have,
Right.
The things that we talk about, the things we question, I'm sure they question sometimes too. And I've been kind of obsessed with this for a few years now, the idea that all these characters have essentially gone and have died, and what does that do to them? And what does that do to the universe? And who believes and who doesn't? So, like, when the Survivor comes back and is like, the Justice League are dead, there are some characters that are like, oh my God, what do we do next? There's some characters that are like, whatever, they're gonna be back, right? Like, and that causes conflict among people, right? And it creates like an interesting dynamic among the characters that are left behind and how they react to it. So I definitely thought about the idea of the death fatigue stuff, and it'll just becoming part of the story.
I hear you, man. No, Brandon is thinking about Clark, and Justice League 75 hasn't even been released yet. Really scared. I understand, man. I feel that way too. As much as I've said, and again, I don't mean to sound like a ghoul saying I can't wait, because I like the character moments that are possible after the death. And like you just said, Josh, in terms of that, the characters in the story talk about these deaths just like we are, in terms of, God, I never had a chance to say X. Or again, back to Hickman with the death of Johnny Storm in Fantastic Four. For me, it's that great scene where the Thing can't handle it, and it's Thor, Hercules, and the Hulk, and they let the Thing punch out his frustration.
Yeah,
and it ends with the Thing crying in the Hulk's chest. And and it's just like, that is a brilliant scene. I never would have thought of that.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, when you
that moment,
you go back and look at Death of Superman. And, Death of Superman, that story is great. Like, the whole build-up to the Death of Superman is great. But so is Funeral for a Friend. Funeral for a Friend is great. The thing about Death of Superman that's been really interesting to me, and I see people comment on it. I saw one person in an article say that Death of Superman took place over years. And I was like, yo, let me tell you something. He dies in 75. His ass is back in 81. Like,
they did take a few months.
Took a 3-month break, but listen,
because of the reign of the Superman and everything.
Right. It took a 3-month. There's a 3-month break in between the end of Funeral for a Friend and the end of Adventures of Superman 500, right? The Superman Reborn stuff. Now, here's the thing, though. Like, you're talking about Cyborg Superman is on the cover. I think it's Cyborg Superman. It's on the cover of 78, right? So that means that they were really only doing that story. Like, there's that cover. The cover to 80 is a big shot of Superman's head, right? So it's like, you're talking about 3 months. 3 months. The reason why it feels like it was really long is because that book was weekly. Like,
what?
Weekly. Superman was weekly. Yes. Remember when they were doing the China numbers?
Right.
It was weekly. So it feels like a lot. Like, when you actually go and you look at it, you're like, oh, man. Because I have, like, the omnibus here and stuff, and you're like, that is a big book. But it isn't. It feels like it was a lot longer than it was. And so it's always really interesting with these dynamics and what we remember happening versus what really happened. I was reading in all my research for this, right? All my research, one of the things I did was, I was like, what happened to DCU when Superman died? How was the rest of the DCU impacted? And boy, let me tell you, not much. Like, I went back, I was looking through Titans, like Batman was dealing with Nightfall. Wonder Woman was dealing with the stuff that she was dealing with Artemis, like a little bit after that. Mm-hmm. But I was going through looking at how it was actually impacted during Death of Superman. And of course, like, I think one of the biggest impacts is Green Lantern, right? Because Central City, like, that's
right,
probably the
nuts
thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have Justice League. There was stuff happening in Justice League because of it. But it wasn't the entire line. And on my research, I was trying to figure out what was going on in the Titans when Death of Superman happened, but also Nightfall happened. And I read these issues before. I read them when they were coming out, but I haven't read it in a long time. So I'm going back through reading the Titans issues, and there's a scene where Dick, Nightwing, he calls Alfred on the phone to be like, why is Bruce not coming to my wedding? Because he was getting married to Starfire, right? And Alfred tells him over the phone. They don't even really show Alfred. Tells him over the phone that Bruce had his back broken by Bane. And he's like, oh, okay, I didn't know. All right. Hangs up. And I think it's Donna. And Donna's like, what happened? And he was just like, oh, Bruce got really hurt. And then he literally talks about the wedding. And he's supposed to, like, nothing happened. He goes like, now where are the place settings going to be at? Where are people sitting at this wedding? Like, there's no, like, if that happened now, people would flip out. There's no, like, oh, I need to leave to go to Gotham to help Bruce. It was literally like, I have it saved on my iPad because I had a grab of it because I was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, hilarious. He just, he's just like, oh yeah, Bruce got hurt. Well, back to my wedding.
Was Marv still writing Titans when that was happening?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'll
okay, because I almost envision a writer being like, God damn it, I'm telling the story here, and I got to acknowledge this bullshit. Fine, 3 panels. That's it.
Oh man, it never stops though. It never stops.
I always love that.
When I was on Flash, I was always trying to recognize everything that was going on. Like, I always pay attention to what's going on in their books, and I talk to their writers and their artists and stuff. And so I'm always trying to pay attention to everything. And I was always trying, but it can be exhausting to try to make it match up to everything. It's impossible, really, to make it all match all of the time. But yeah, anyway. Any more questions?
Oh no, again, because people are just rolling. If you don't mind, I don't mind doing
Yeah,
this.
no, dude, I can answer all.
Now you even said, Josh, that am I right that Jason is going to be in the Deathstroke comic because you're saying he and Roy, or was it somewhere else that?
Oh, let me read that. Okay, so will Jason Todd be in the Deathstroke comics? No. Since her and Ravager are dating is implied by you in dialogue and Robin. I I don't know if I would call them dating. I feel like I have my own personal feelings on what their relationship is like. I think it's more complicated than that. Um, you will see them together at some point, but it will not be in Deathstroke.
Okay, and then following up on that, She Sweet Sally wants to know which characters can we expect to be essential in dealing with Deathstroke. Will the ground level aspect of the event be separated, or more so entwined?
It's very entwined.
Okay.
I would say a lot of characters are going to be dealing with Deathstroke. You'll see as we get there, but it's very entwined.
And let's clarify for Sergio. Will you be the next Justice League writer after Brian Michael Bennis? You've already said no Justice League.
There is no Justice League. Yeah.
So as soon as Brian's story's over, we're gonna get JLA 75 or JL 75,
and then it's over. Yeah. There's not gonna be a Justice League book for it. I mean, that's a major plot point of the book. There's no Justice League. I literally wrote a line. I wrote so many lines of dialogue this day that are based on them talking about there's no Justice League. So, yeah. There's no Justice League for a bit. I mean, I think one of the things that's been really fascinating about this is watching the kind of predictions that people have of what's coming, and so confident they know exactly what we're doing, and they're so wrong. But me and Daniel and a couple of people, there's like one or two people who have like figured it out exactly what's happening, and then a lot of people are wrong. It's been fascinating to watch. Everyone's trying to predict what we're doing, but in that video we made, the very last thing I said is it's not going to be what you expect. So it's going to be really interesting once we start really getting into it to see how it starts to really unravel and where people are surprised about what it really does,
So, yeah. So Dark Crisis is the book to then leap to after Justice League 75.
Yeah, so we're doing a thing where we're doing Justice League 75, and then we're doing Free Comic Book Day, which has a short and a preview and has some other stuff going on in it, like recapping of DC stuff. But it's crucial to the story. And then we're doing a Road to special that comes out in May. It's a one shot, has a couple shorts in it that also kind of play around with some of the ideas. But then Dark Crisis #1. But we've also made it so that it's June, yeah. So if somebody wanted to, let's say they were like, I think that you get more out of it if you read all of it,
Yeah.
But I've always engineered it, like literally, if you haven't read DC for the last year and you just want to read Justice League 75, I wrote it so that you get the information you need, right? Like you can jump in at 75 and totally have everything you need to do. Same thing with Dark Crisis #1. Like I wrote both of them with the mindset, and actually that was Brian. That was your boy Brian that recommended that too. I was talking to him about this back in, I think it was August. And he was like, you got to make sure you do something to give everybody that recap organically. And so I wrote them both so that you can jump in at them and be able to dive right into the story.
Okay, so there you go, everybody. So Justice League 75 in April, Free Comic Book Day, and Road to in May.
Yeah, in May, and then
Dark Crisis in June.
Yep.
There you go, man. No. Excellent. Magic K wants to know, will Flashpoint Beyond, that's the coming Jeff Johns event, is that at all connected to Dark Crisis?
Not really. We do. I don't want to get too much into spoilers. There is a connection.
Okay.
But they can act independently of each other.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool. God, Mystic Visions, I want to say. Can you perhaps shed some details on Jace's role in the new Justice League and his relationship with the members, especially Joe Mullen or Moline?
Well, again, there's no Justice League. Just to put that in there again. I actually haven't written them together since Future State Justice League. I haven't written them together. Jace is in issue 1 of Dark Crisis, but then he's not in it for a bit. He's not in 2 and 3. Joe is in those issues, but I haven't written them together yet, so I don't really can comment too much on their relationship or how they know each other yet, because I haven't written them together yet since Justice League the Future State stuff.
Okay. Daffy wants to know, will Roy's Black Lantern stuff come back somewhere, or is that done? And his search for his daughter.
Him being a Black Lantern is done, but he definitely comes back around in the story, and so does the stuff with him searching for his daughter. The stuff with him searching for his daughter, you know, the schedules didn't really match up with some of the stuff we were planning, and so some of the stuff got pushed back because like the Red X stuff and some of the stuff, the Red X and the Earth 3 stuff ended up coming up first, but we will get back around to that without getting too much into spoilers. It'll come back around.
Dante wants to know, with all the events you've got going and also the current books that we're all enjoying and stuff, how far ahead are you on your scripting?
I'm very far ahead, thankfully. Otherwise, I mean, that's the thing. Like with Rogues, which is a Black Label book I did, I actually wrote that in 2020. So, yeah, God, I wrote it in 2020, and it's coming out in like 2 weeks. So I'm usually really far ahead. I mean, even right now, I'm really far ahead on a lot of stuff. But I'm even starting to work on things that aren't going to come out until 2023. Like I'm already starting to work on next year's stuff, which is crazy. Like there are things I'm working on now that will come out for a long time.
A couple people, John and Gar, are asking, will you continue to write Robin and Deathstroke Incorporated for the foreseeable future?
No. Yes and no. So Robin, I have some stuff after Robin with Shadow War. I love writing Robin. It is easily like, I would say probably the happiest I've been at DC is working on Robin and writing Damian. Like I love Damian. I was actually talking to Grant on the phone last week about Damian and some Dark Crisis stuff, and just talking about how much I love writing the character. With Deathstroke, I'm actually leaving Deathstroke after Shadow War. There'll be reasons why. Like it'll figure it out. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I'll be done with Deathstroke after Shadow War, but there's a reason why. And I think once we start getting into Shadow War, once we start getting really into Dark Crisis, it'll be really obvious why.
This is interesting. Yeah, what can we expect from President Superman and the Justice League Incarnate going forward? Seeing them in jail, Justice League 75 was unexpected.
Well, at the end of Justice League Incarnate number 5, they saw what was coming. They saw Pariah, and they know that there's an army coming, but they don't know what's in the army. They just know that there is a dark army. They're aware that the bleed is starting to become overwhelmed by the darkness. And at the end of that issue, President Superman is like, we got to go get help. And they go get help with the Justice League. Without getting too much into spoilers, I mean, if the Justice League dies, I mean, come on. Like, you'll see what happens when you read the issue. But like I said before, it's a rough story. A lot of stuff goes on in that story. So there is no Justice League after issue 75.
Hilarious, man.
Yeah.
So tell me about Shadow War.
Yeah.
And because I mean, obviously that's coming up even quicker.
Yeah, that'll be here at the end of March. Yeah, Shadow War was a story that I pitched to DC about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and they were like, "Oh, we think we'll do it in 2023." And at the time, I was like, "What?" But it made sense because I was able to like earn it. Like I was able to get the story where I needed to go. So when we started working on Robin and Deathstroke, we knew this is where it was going, and we knew it was going to be a Batman story, and we were able to incorporate all the things we had planned. But basically, what happens is, and this is all unsolicited, so I'm not telling you anything that's like a necessarily a surprise, but Deathstroke has been building his own little army, right? He's building Deathstroke Inc. He's self-proclaimed himself as the king of supervillains, and he feels like if he's going to be a bad guy, he's going to be the best bad guy, and he'll be in charge. And in Shadow War Alpha, which is part 1 of that event, he kills Ra's al Ghul. He assassinates him. And Talia afterwards is like, this is out of control. Like, this guy killed my father. He's building this army. This is a problem. She's already been kind of aware of him. Like, she was sort of knowing that there was a problem brewing for a while.
Sure.
And also, Talia is part of the totality. So she's also pretty aware of some of the other things that are going on with the multiverse. And so she's very much having her own stuff going on. When Deathstroke assassinates Ra's al Ghul, Talia is just like, all right, that's enough. And she sends her army of assassins, the League of Assassins, um, and a new group of the League of Assassins. They're called the Demon's Shadow, and she sends them after not only Deathstroke, but anybody who has worked with Deathstroke or his family or his friends. Like, we're just going to take them all out, and anyone who harbors him is considered an enemy. And so the story is about, the Demon's Shadow and the secret society of supervillains going to war with each other, and Batman and Damian are caught in the middle trying to put a stop to it, but they're also trying to figure out why did Deathstroke kill Ra's al Ghul, and there's a bunch of twists that are coming that we've been able to keep secret, thankfully. But I think once we get going into it, people will see. But it's an awesome event. It's Victor Bogdanovic. He drew the first part. It looks great. Howard Porter's drawing the Batman issue. We got Roger Cruz. Like, it's a really much more grounded event. Like, it's an interesting balance between like the stuff I was doing with Infinite Frontier and Dark Crisis and Death of Justice League, which is very big and very cosmic, where this one is really just like a bunch of people fighting ninjas for 2 months. Even the Batman issue is actually, the title is called Too Many Fucking Ninjas. Of course, it's bleeped out, but because Howard Porter drew so many ninjas, I was kind of joking with him where I'm like, oh, they're getting attacked by like 100 ninjas. And then Howard like drew 100 ninjas, and I was like, oh my god, dude, it looks bonkers. But it's a lot of fun. It's very much like a fun, and especially as we're going into some of the stuff with Death of the Justice League and Dark Crisis, it was fun to just do an event that was like everyone's fighting ninjas for a few issues, and just just a really big, grounded, action-packed, like blockbuster action movie.
Excellent, man. John wants to know, will you be writing any unannounced DC books in the near future?
I'm always writing unannounced books.
There you go.
I mean, like, I'm always doing something that hasn't been announced. I've got plenty of stuff on my plate that I'm working on that hasn't been announced. I remember, I think it was like a year ago when you and I were talking, and I was like, oh, I was writing like 5 or 6 books for DC at the time. That is still true, but not all of them have been announced yet. No, but I'm doing a lot of stuff for DC, and I keep looking at my whiteboard up here. I have a project whiteboard, and I'm like, how many books am I writing? But yeah, there's a few things that have been announced that I'm working on.
Outstanding. Let's see here. Oh, this is nice. Yeah. How many hours? Sergio wants to know, how many hours do you write and have time to read the comics?
Well, so
omnibus?
I'm usually,
what are omnibus?
Like an omnibus.
Oh, the omnibuses, of course.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'm
Omnibus.
usually in my office around 7 in the morning.
Wow.
Here till probably 6. Depends on the day. If I'm, if I cook dinner for my family, I'm usually out of here by 5. But a lot of times I'm in here from, dude, I eat lunch and I eat breakfast. I eat breakfast and lunch at this desk. Yeah, I'm like, so I work all day. I do take weekends off though. Like, I do, I create that as a boundary. And then I read comics at night. I do read comics in the day, like on a Wednesday morning or a Tuesday morning for DC. I read a bunch of books right in the morning while I'm having my coffee. And then, I'm back in here a lot of times for like maybe an hour. So once I get the kids down, I come back in here for about an hour, answer emails, make sure nothing's on fire, make sure nobody's waiting on me for anything. Like, I never want to leave like an artist waiting on me, So I try to make sure certain things are taken care of before I really wrap it up. But yeah, I'm pulling in easily like a 12-hour day, but again, I take the weekends off. I have a line in the sand for the weekend.
I'm trying to decipher Wesley's frustration here. DC's bleeping the entire word multiple times in every book. Oh, I see. Yeah, all right. So you're saying bleeping bad words in every book is annoying. I want to know what the artists intend, their vision is. Is there an exec all the writers are trying to piss off by throwing in, I guess?
No, I mean, there's still, we don't bleep them in the Black Label books. Like, Rogues has a bunch of cussing in it. Like, I actually feel like I was looking at Rogues 2 tonight before we started talking, and I actually feel like I need to add more cuss words to it. But well, I need to add a variety. I had a lot of F words. I got to add some more variety to it. But I do a lot of that. If you're curious about that, like I do a lot of the bleeping thing. Like I put a lot in there. The books are still supposed to be a certain rating, right? Like, I mean, you have to look at it as they're still supposed to be, for the most part, PG. And so you look at that, and that's kind of what we're aiming for. The fact that we get to have the bleeps at all, I'm very thankful for. I mean, and you know what it means. Like, you do know what it means, I feel.
Okay,
we're not trying to piss anybody off. Yeah, I feel like it's just part of the story too. Like what it means when you read it. For the most part, I imagine.
Okay, fair enough. I was answering a guy who wanted to know if your Stephanie and Kara question had been answered. I'm telling him to read it.
I did answer it. Yeah, I'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll get it in there.
Don't sweat it. Absolutely, man. You talk about Rogues for a second, man. How far are you into the story?
I wrote it. I wrote it.
Is it already out? Is it already done?
Oh no, issue 1 comes out. I think the 22nd. So it comes out this month. Yeah, issue 1 comes out this month. Okay. Leo Max is an artist who worked on Basket Full of Heads. So it's a Joe Hill book.
Yes.
Hill House. Yeah. I remember they sent me issue 1 of that, right? Like the editors sent me issue 1 of that. And I loved it. Like I read Basket Full of Heads and I was like, this is great. I wrote them an email and it's awesome. I really like this a lot. I really like this artist. And then when I was working on Rogues, I hadn't even written it yet. We were just talking about the story and the ideas and, really getting into outlining and plotting. And the editor reached out to me and she was like, I'm thinking about reaching out to Leo Max. And I was like, that'd be great. I love their work. I just, that'd be like a dream. I think they'd be perfect for it. And sure enough, Leo Max liked what I was pitching and jumped on. And it's, it takes place 10 years in the future after the Rogues have disbanded. And they've all kind of gone their separate ways. And, Len is like Snart, is working at a box company. He's just like a floor manager, like an engineer, and he's on parole and he's just trying to walk the line. He's trying not to get sent back to prison. And, he's kind of going nuts because it's like this person who, Len is thinks very highly of himself and he doesn't want to be a loser like his dad was, and he has this ideas about respect and proving something, but he's stuck in this job on parole, and then something happens and it makes him kind of snap and be like, no, I gotta get back on this, and they decide to go on one last heist, and that's sort of what the story is about, is Rogues getting back together to go on that one last heist. It's a very much it's a little tropey. It's a little heist crime tropey, but with the Rogues, it's a lot of fun. And just get to see the Rogues in a different situation. I wrote them a lot in Flash. I originally, this story actually was, I had pitched it as the second arc of Flash. And, we were really in the early days of Rebirth. And part of it was like, if you're introducing all these characters, you introduce them in a certain way or very much about their core. And when I pitched this story, it was like, that's a great Rogue story, but it wasn't a Flash story. So we put it to the side. And, 2 years ago, it came back up and they were like, do you want to do that story now? Do you want to do it this way? And we just talked about it a bunch and then it worked out. And it's a very different kind of book. Like it is not a superhero book. It is a crime book. It's very much like a noir crime, dirty book.
That's
a little mean. A little mean. Yeah.
No, but again, this underlines Zach's question, but I think you're describing why the Rogues are so compelling to you.
And I think it's not I think it's this interesting thing of how they're this family of criminals, and it's really strange with them. It was funny working on Flash and writing those characters because I don't really see them as villains a lot of times, I just see them as like working class people that are just happen to be criminals. I think with them it's always about writing them together and writing their relationships and how they bounce off each other and just getting to see them a different light. I saw someone's question about if the Flash appears in the Rogues, and the Flash is not in the Rogues at all.
No. Wow. Okay, cool. It's like Joker with Azzarello and Bermejo, where it really was a Joker story. That's great.
Yeah, it's a Rogue story. There's no superheroes in it.
That's excellent. And obviously Len and everyone we would expect is going to be in the book, or
well, some of them are dead. So you'll have to, again, it's 10 years in the future, and so that impacts some of the story.
Understood. Oh,
Len has to pull together a new group, so you'll see as we get in there. Without getting too much into spoilers, you'll see. Yeah,
that's so great, Josh. Because honestly, I love what King is doing with Batman Catwoman. I love what Cliff is doing with his Catwoman in the future story. And I really do think Black Label is this great opportunity to tell these kind of future stories.
Yeah, I feel like Rogues is probably the most, creator-owned type of book I've done. Like if you like Ghosted or Nailbiter or Birthright, Rogues is a lot more in that vein than Flash was. I mean, Flash was such a bright superhero book, and then working on Robin has been very much like a manga tournament, kind of shonen story. So I try to jump around a bit, but Rogues is a bit more on the crime side, kind of like some of my creator own work has been.
Okay. After Shadow War, will Damian and Deathstroke still be fighting one another into Dark Crisis?
It's a complicated question. I feel like you have to read Shadow War before we get into that.
There you go.
I haven't written them together, but they're like, I wrote a scene today where Damian is talking about Deathstroke, but they're not still fighting. I mean, it's really hard to get into without completely spoiling the stuff that's coming. It'll be very interesting to see how people react once you really start getting into it. There's going to be a lot of surprises, and again, like I said earlier, there's a lot of misdirection that we're kind of doing on purpose. So yeah,
I hear you, man. I agree with Wesley's comment. Black Label has been great for DC. I still wish we could have a world with Vertigo, Elseworlds, and Black Label living together. I agree. I think all of those flavors are valid. And
I was a big Vertigo person. I was a big Vertigo person. But I think if you like Vertigo and you like Elseworld, you're still getting that stuff with Black Label.
I hear what you're saying. No, absolutely. Any chance Superboy Prime might appear in Dark Crisis?
No. I feel like we did a good job. Like Jeff wrote a story where poor Superboy Prime finally gets a moment of happiness. I'm not going to ruin that. Let that kid go outside and hang out and chill out. Like Superboy Prime, poor Superboy Prime, such an angry young man. Let's let him just chill for a little bit. Let him just kind of relax. There's going to be a lot of surprises in Dark Crisis. I thought about Superboy Prime a couple times, but let's let that poor boy just relax for a little bit. He's happy right now. Let's just leave him over there, let him be happy.
I don't know who this character is. Gar wants to know, will Gleb Menkov ever return in the future? Who is that, man?
He's the artist on Robin. I love Gleb. Yeah, I love Gleb. Gleb is great. Issue 11 was Gleb's last issue of Robin. Gleb is moving on to another very exciting project. But I'm not done working with Gleb. That's the most I can tell you.
Okay.
Gleb is really, really talented, great creator, and was like my brother in arms on Robin. And
Gleb is the greatest of all time character. Absolutely, he's a goat. Fantastic. Gleb. That's excellent, man.
That was great. Yeah.
Jonathan Black Canary. Yeah, anything you could share about Black Canary?
Well, she dies. So Black Canary has a small role coming up. I say small, but it's really important. She has a very important role in Shadow War. And then she has a really important role in issue 75 of the Justice League. I love Black Canary. It's why we put her in Deathstroke. But you'll see. We'll get there. There's a lot of cool stuff coming with Black Canary.
Will Red X have any involvement in Dark Crisis?
No. Originally, yes. There was a whole plan originally, yes, and then it just didn't work out. Like, I had a whole in the original plans for Dark Crisis, Red X. There was going to be something with Red X, and it just didn't work out. So no Red X in Dark Crisis.
And does Dark Crisis connect to Future State?
Not really. To be honest with you, I feel like the future of Future State is kind of its own thing at this point. It doesn't really connect that much. There's a couple little things, I think. Like I always say, everything is connected. You'll have to kind of wait to see. But again, like with some of the stuff that we're talking about, some of the covers that have been released are a little bit misdirection on purpose. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I think you've got to read it when it comes to some of those types of questions. But yeah, you'll see.
Dude, I hear you, man, and honestly, I appreciate some of the questions, but I also think it's like, read the fucking book, people, please.
That's always the answer.
And sorry, I don't mean to be,
I get questions a lot of times. They're just like, I want spoilers, and I'm like, I don't like. I personally don't like things spoiled for me. Like, I think it's part of the, I remember when I saw Spider-Man: Homecoming, I saw it on an airplane, and I had somehow avoided like every spoiler in that movie. And I remember sitting in that airplane watching it for the first time. And there's one twist, in case you haven't seen Spider-Man: Homecoming. There's one very particular twist for the ending, like the beginning of the third act. I did not know. Somehow it had been kept secret to me. I did not predict it. I did not guess it. I just sat on this airplane and I gasped so loud. People in the airplane like turned to look at me because I was so shocked. And I like that feeling, and like being surprised when I'm reading or watching something. So I try to maintain that. But that's also part of why some of the stuff that we do put out is sometimes misleading on purpose, just to get you so when you are reading it, we can still surprise you because I want to surprise you. So I don't always answer every question. I don't always give away everything, but that's why.
I hear you. All right, now I'm going to be like an older brother to Gar. And he asks, so will Dark Crisis affect John Kent in any way? What do you think?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You'll see.
No, not at all. His dad dies, and much like Dick Grayson, he's going to worry about.
No, there will definitely be some stuff in the aftermath of this book that I think people will be surprised by.
Gar.
I saw a question here. Somebody asked about Nightwing in Dark Crisis. Nightwing is so important to Dark Crisis. It's crazy.
Well, yeah. If the Justice League is gone, Dick is the leader of that next generation. So I would imagine he, of course, takes that kind of responsibility.
Yes, that is such an important part of what is happening with Dark Crisis is Nightwing, and the idea that once Justice League is gone, everyone turns to look at Nightwing. Like they all turn to look at him. That's why in the preview pages we've already shown of issue 1, Nightwing is giving the speech at the vigil, right? Like Nightwing is a very important part of Dark Crisis, like crazy important part.
Understood, man. I'm sorry. I'm reading comments as well.
Oh yeah, I can drop them on me here.
Gar, I just needed to be addressed here, so it'll generate discussion. All right, Gar. Fair enough. What's the wackiest character you want to write for? Asks Potato Tomato.
Character? God, I don't know.
Are there any third level, C level Ragman or
Oh, well, I mean, in terms of like Dark Crisis, I'm trying to get everybody into Dark Crisis. I'm trying to find a room for every character in there, but
cool.
Like I know there's an Ambush Bug fan out there that's gonna ask me about it. They've asked me about it at cons before, and I'm always like, I'm gonna try. I'm really glad that they're in Suicide Squad. God, is there any character that I want to write that's like a third stringer? I always wanted to write Lobo. Also, I want to clarify this. I hate when we call some of these characters third stringers. I feel like I'm hurting somebody's feelings, But like, there's somebody that's like, no, Lobo is an A-lister, and I love Lobo. I got like 2 Lobo toys right here in my office, like right here behind me. I love Lobo.
And I just say that in terms, you know what I mean by it, and everything.
Yeah, of course, I understand. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of characters I want to write. It's like I look at like Lobo and Deadman. I don't think of Hawkman as being a third stringer. I like Hawkman a lot, but I also
like
feel
Hawkman
like
as well.
Yeah, I feel like what Venditti did on Hawkman we've had this conversation before. It was perfect. It was great. I almost feel like that's it. Like I look forward to that omnibus. I feel like what they did on Hawkman was really strong.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how you hop on that necessarily. I always wanted to write the Demon. Like I always wanted to do a Demon book. I was like around my office at toys. I'm like, what toys do I have? That's always a clue. There's a lot of characters I want to write. We'll see if I can get around to them all. I also don't like. There's a lot of characters at DC that I really like that I'm not sure if I'm the person to write. That's always a thing. Like just because you like a character doesn't mean that you should write them.
No, I hear you, man. Oh, that's funny. Gar says he loves Guy Gardner so much because he's so disliked. But yeah, man. Hey,
I like Guy.
You're talking to someone that loves like Ultra the Multi-Alien and Space Cabbie and people like that. So again, I love these characters, but they just
I tried to get Space Cabbie. I tried to get Space Cabbie in Justice League Odyssey, and it just did not work out. Like I was always trying to find. I got the Weird in Deathstroke. I was able to get that like cameo by the Weird in Deathstroke. What's his question? Considering generations, I'm curious what the role the Titans have in Dark Crisis. That's okay. I like the Titans. The Titans are really important to Dark Crisis. Without getting too much into spoilers, they're really really important to the story. Like the Titans, the Titan mythology, those characters, they're very important. They play a major role throughout the whole thing.
That makes sense. And again, much like Dick, that's the second generation that you would imagine the deaths impact the most.
Yeah, it comes up in issue 1 a lot. There's a whole scene about it, and yeah, you'll see once we start getting into it. It's gonna get real obvious when some of the covers, start coming out. It's one of these is kind of funny because I'm like, oh man, like by the time we get to the cover to like issue 4 and 5, like the jig is up on some stuff. But I'm gonna do my best to keep some things secret as we go. So you'll see. There's there's stuff out there that's misdirection that we did on purpose to kind of, throw people off the scent in some ways.
Hey Josh, honestly, yeah, I remember when Jeff Johns had more time and would come on more regularly on Word Balloon and would talk about an event coming up, and we'd finish and he'd go, "You want to know what happens?" Like off the air, and I'm like, "No, man." I'm like, "I want to read the goddamn thing."
Yeah,
I understand. Jeff was just so excited he wanted to share. So
you've talked to Scott before too, because Scott will spoil everything if you start talking to Scott. Scott will spoil everything. I'm a little more cagey about this stuff. It takes me a minute. Except with Creator Own, when I was doing like Creator Own stuff, I would spoil stuff all the time. But with DC stuff, I'm a little more nervous about things. I always get a little more like, I don't know, I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
John, wait for the announcement. Can you tease what your next DC book when it might be announced, or whatever? You can say when.
When? I can't say when. I don't know.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard with some of this stuff. I can kind of guess, but it's gonna be a while. There's gonna be a window where I will not be announcing anything new. I feel like I'm done announcing things for a few months. I have to think about this. I feel like I'm done announcing DC books for a few months. But I'm always working on stuff. You never know.
Understood. Sergio wants to know, do you have a vision for the Atom? I'm assuming for this story, obviously.
The Atom, both Atoms are in Dark Crisis #1, and they'll come up again throughout. Yeah.
Outstanding. That's great to hear. Wesley has a comment. The team on Robin has been so great. I love the book, including the B cover artists. Where did they come from and who found them?
Talking about Francis Manapul. Francis Manapul is an amazing artist. I think one of the best artists in the world. Is one of my favorite artists. The fact that Francis got to come on to Robin was a dream. I've Francis is a good friend. I don't know if they I remember following them back when they were doing stuff for Top Cow, and then when they did Legion of Superheroes with Jim Shooter back a while back. And but of course I think one of the biggest things they did was the Flash during New 52, and then right now they're working on Clear with Scott Snyder at Comixology. They're terrific. Francis is awesome.
I love Francis, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Jonathan points out that in Robin, Connor seems to go by Hawk, but does he still go by Green Arrow as well?
I don't know how to answer that yet. To be honest with you, I always just thought of them as Hawk. I've been calling them Hawk for a long time. Especially once we started working on Robin, the idea of like the Robin's natural predator as a Hawk, it all like came together that they were going to have this sort of evolving friendship throughout the book. Right now, I call them just Hawk. I don't call them Green Arrow. This is actually a thing, if you'll notice. Throughout all of Robin, Hawk has not used a bow and arrow. Not once. There's actually a scene in the annual where Master Dusk from the League of Shadows tries to give him a bow, and he's like, no, not yet. So I think it's going to be a minute before we get to him being Green Arrow again, because he hasn't shot you look at Robin, he hasn't shot a bow and arrow once throughout the story. There's a flashback moment where I think he shoots one, but not in the current story. He has not shot a bow and
arrow. World D, are there multiple tie-ins for Dark Crisis?
I mean, it's an event, so the most I'm going to tell you is that. Just be patient here. I think some stuff will get announced in the next week or so. Yeah.
Okay. And Sergio, this is a good opportunity to say your Batman comics right now are great. I agree. The Batman Incorporated story with Luthor was outstanding, and I want to see.
Yeah.
Where's the I brought up the one image.
Oh, you brought up the 121 cover. Yeah.
Well, no, it was. I think it was the interior shot of. Oh, maybe I didn't post it yet. But I love, just like in Superman, that Luthor has tricked his armor out to have the Batman.
Yeah,
well.
Batman
It's like
stuff.
he's mocking. Yeah. It's like he's mocking
That's
Superman.
how I feel about it too. He's mocking them. Yeah, he's mocking, because I think that Lex has this attitude of I can do it too. You know, like Lex is like, I could be Superman. All you are is powers, right? Like you're not. This is like, it's always fascinating the kind of brains versus brawn attitude that Lex has about Superman. Even though we know Superman is incredibly intelligent, Lex is always like writing him off. You know, of like, well, if I had his powers, and I think with Bruce it's the same thing, where it's he kind of writes him off. Like I could be Batman. I could do this. Like you're nothing. I could do this. I'm Lex Luthor. I could be Batman. But yeah, I love writing Lex. Lex is one of my favorite characters at DC to write.
And it was so great seeing all the Batman Incorporated guys back.
Yeah. That story's not done. You know, I would say read Shadow War and read the Batman annual that Ed Bryson is writing. That also comes out in May. You know, read those. That's the most I can tell you right now.
JG wants to know, will the second Lazarus tournament be a future storyline?
It's not going to be called a Lazarus tournament. I know what they're talking about, because in issue 11, Lady Shiva warned Hawk that there is another tournament. It won't be a Lazarus tournament. That's a ways away. That's a ways away in terms of a story, so I can't really talk about that one too much.
Okay.
That's far from now. Like we talk about planning ahead. Yeah.
Solomon. No spoilers, but are you excited for how other writers are going to deal with Dark Crisis? Yeah, I mean, have you had that kind of conference with everybody in terms of,
I talked to, depending on the book, there are certain books that are way more tied in than others, which will become apparent. And I talk to those writers, frequently. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. There's some really cool stuff coming up, and I think the way other writers are sort of handling the pieces they've been given are really fascinating. So I'm very excited for what they're doing with it. I've had some really cool calls with people, some really great emails. A lot of people I know, so I can get on the phone with them or I can text with them. There's been some covers that have been coming in that are really fun. I saw a Chris Burnham cover today that was really cool. I was showing them off to Matt Rosenberg and James Tynion today. He's being like, look at some of the cool stuff that is coming for Dark Crisis. It's been really fun.
Oh, this is awesome. I like Greg's question. He loves your Johnny Cash shirt that you're wearing right now. Who are the highwaymen of the DC universe? That's a good question. Ooh, I like that.
I don't know. I didn't think about that. Let me get back to you on that one. Now I have to that feel like is a whole other conversation, and I won't be here too long. I'm talking about other stuff.
Well, my feeling is that's kind of your hard traveling heroes. So I would think Hal and Ollie would kind of fit that highwayman sort of role, being that kind of heroes that take to the road.
Well, we got Roy. You have Jason. There are a lot of characters.
I was going to say Roy. Well, and again, this is and John's is on the brain ever since they made that Flashpoint announcement. But I remember John's talking about, and it's great because again, I'm really glad that Nightwing matters in the Dark Crisis story. We talked about at the time when Dan DiDio was like, does Dick really matter? We've got so many Robins. Maybe we should kill off Dick. And of course, Jeff was one of the first advocates saying, no, you don't get it, man. And then what he literally said was, tying into the Highwayman, he's like, if you're on a cross-country trip and you got to have somebody sitting shotgun next to you, he's like, Dick Grayson is the guy you want next to you. And
there's a reason that we've shown the art already, but Dark Crisis #1 literally starts with Dick Grayson taking the oath to become Robin. Like that is.
Oh, that's so great. Oh.
He's a very important character. I gotta think about this. Who are the other Highwaymen? I don't know. It depends on. Yeah, I feel like Jason and I don't know Nightwing. Of course you want Nightwing there, but I never really think about Nightwing as like a hard traveling heroes character. But I guess I'm not even sure if Hal would have been that. I mean, Hal makes sense though. Hal's such a Paul.
Just because they did it. They did it. They did the cross country trip to figure out what was going on. What are we missing? Why aren't we? That's I feel when, when Straczynski did it with Superman. It's like, no, man, Hal and Ollie already did this trip, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about the people who have all the characters that would go on a motorcycle ride together across country. Who are those characters?
Roy, I think obviously.
Yeah, Roy for sure. Roy and Jason. I think the Batgirls. I can see the Batgirls going on a road trip. I think that'd be fun. Yeah.
All right, there you go. Jesse wants to know how excited you are for Chip Zdarsky's Batman run after yours, and does that eventually tie into the Crisis?
I'm very excited for Chip's story. I got to read the first issue recently, and it was very, very good. Without getting into spoilers, everything is connected. It's just going to take some time to get there. That's the most I can tell you without getting into spoilers of all these pieces that we're playing with.
Clayton wants you to know he is a huge fan. He was exclusively a trade collector until Infinite Frontier hit, and suddenly had to collect monthly, and I've been following loads of your books. Huge fan.
That's awesome. Thank you for the compliment. I'm welcome to monthly comics.
And Gar makes the observation, I feel like Dark Crisis is DC's first time taking Dick Grayson the same way fans have viewed him for years. Yeah, maybe.
Well, if you read what Tom, and Bruno were doing in Nightwing, man, that book is really hitting it, right? Like it's nailing, I think what people wanted for a really, really long time with that character. So I hope you're reading that book. If you're a Nightwing fan, I really hope you're reading Nightwing right now. We when I started working on Dark Crisis and laying out what the story was going to be because of Nightwing's role and because of John's role and a lot of other characters, like, Tom was one of the first people I reached out to be like, here's what I'm doing. I just want to make sure it's not screwing up your stuff. And we talked about it a lot, and they've been able to read the outline and read the things we're going. And I show them stuff. Like there's a big Nightwing scene in issue 2 that I showed all the art to Tom when I came in, just to be like, this is what's going on. And then also, Bruno and Daniel St. Pierre, the artist on Dark Crisis, him and Bruno are like best friends. So even if I wasn't telling Tom what was going on, the two of them talk all day, they would totally be showing each other. So, but yeah, you should definitely be reading Nightwing if you're a big Nightwing fan.
Ooh, I like this question from Jonathan. Opinions on the recent changes made to Comixology?
I read a lot of comic books, like a lot, right? And I read stuff in print, like I go to the comic store, I read a lot of trades. I mean, you can tell behind me, and I have stacks and stacks. But over the years, I've really become, I read a lot of, I read a lot of digital books too, right? And a lot of stuff on Comixology. I feel like the changes aren't done too much to comment on. I mean, you obviously see that like when they made the changes, there was a bit of a backlash, and they responded to that backlash. And I think we should try to have faith that they're going to try to fix some of the stuff. Personally, I missed lists. If you want to really get like into the nitty gritty, I missed the lists. Because what I would do on a Wednesday morning or a Tuesday morning. So on Tuesday mornings, I get the DC books. And I would just go through and I would just really quickly download all of them really fast and then just read in order. And using the list was really helpful to me with that process. But the rest of it, I think it works. I like a lot of the interface stuff. I think there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm liking about it so far. But I also don't get. This is a thing about me and comics in general. Right? I'm gonna tell you a little story here for a moment. I'm gonna kind of deviate, but I'll come back to it. Back when I was in high school, I was working at a comic book store, and I remember coming into work one day on a Wednesday night, and everybody in the store was like freaking out about something. I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And they're like, Marvel filed for bankruptcy. We are going out of business. I mean, they were like, it is over. Like, and I remember I was young, I was only like 16, maybe 15. And I was just like, oh no, does that mean I'm out of a job? Like, what happens? Like, what happens if Marvel go, again, I was young, so I didn't understand there were different versions of bankruptcy. But to me at the time, bankruptcy meant it was over, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I remember thinking like, oh my God, so what happens? And everybody in the store's talking about it. And the owner was like, I don't know. I think that's it. They're done. That this is it. And I was so nervous because I was just like, oh my God, like what's going to happen to my character? What's going to happen to these comics? What's going to happen to Marvel? And then how is that going to trickle out to the rest of the industry? And how is it going to affect me here in the comic book store? And I know those things do impact, and I do, go beyond just the company. I understand that. But that has always given me a feeling of patience, I guess, with a lot of these things. And it's sort of like less of the sky is always falling that I think a lot of our industry has at times. Joe Quesada talked about this, I think a year or two ago on Twitter, where they were like, it's almost part of the DNA of comics at this point to always be worried that it's all going to fall apart any minute, right? Like that's a major, it's almost like it's built into the industry at this point, this constant fear of the sky is falling. And so I always take everything in stride. So anytime something is changing or something is going on in comics, I've learned to be patient and take it in stride. And so when Comixology got bought by Amazon, and then now with some of the changes that are happening now, I've learned to take it all in stride as a creator and as a fan.
Sure.
Yeah.
I understand. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It wasn't broke. That's my succinct comment on what Amazon has done to Comixology. And I'm a massive Amazon buyer and Comixology supporter. And I've always liked both companies. I hope that they are listening to those of us who just want a simple button that says my books.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's still working for me. I mean, I have to use the apps a lot for research. Like whenever I'm looking stuff up, I got to reread something. If I don't have it, or I just know I can get it faster on my iPad. If I don't have it on the shelf or whatever, so using the apps is really helpful, and I'm still able to do that. So I don't
know. How do you view the new Trinity in contrast to Clark, Bruce, and Diana?
I wouldn't really call them the new Trinity. I feel like you got to get into the story and you'll kind of see what we're doing. There's some stuff in issue 1 that I think is really going to surprise people about what really happens. I think there'll be some surprises about the way things kind of roll out. I don't know if I really call them the new Trinity yet. And I've only written them together. Once in Future State Justice League, and I felt like it was a very different dynamic then, because it was like Yara seemed to be the more take charge, of the three of them. And I still think Jace likes to be very off to the side, right? Like Jace, even in that book, Jace kind of has their own thing going on, and that's sort of how it continues. But again, I haven't written them together in over a year. Yeah. So I can't really comment too much on them together right
now. I'm trying to. All right, yeah. I don't know if you can answer this or not. Out of the DC movies. Out of the DC movies coming out this year in 2023, which are you most looking forward to? I thought you were talking about the comics.
No, I really like. I really like the Batman. I'm trying to think. I mean, really, all of them have little things. I want to see all of them. I mean, there's no question there, sure. Right? But just being super honest, obviously the Flash is the one that is probably the highest on my list, because it's like, I love that character, but also you got Michael Keaton, it's like, come on, like I gotta see it, like again, like it's funny, I try to avoid spoilers, and I know some stuff because of, my job, obviously. But that's one that I do not care. I'll look at anything it's spoilers because I want to know, I want to see it, but yeah, I'm very excited about that movie.
I want to see if you can answer a spoiler-free answer to this question.
Sure.
Will Rose take Deathstroke's place in Dark Crisis of the future? I know she's trying to separate from him in recent issues, but she's taken his place before as Deathstroke in the past. But still, and yeah, so obviously Rose is going to.
Yeah, Rose is important to Shadow War. And I just wrote a scene today with Rose and Slade together in Deathstroke. Rose and Deathstroke together in Dark Crisis. Trying without getting into spoilers. Rose is very present and important. I talk about, when we announced Dark Crisis, I said this is a book about legacy, and legacy, how it means different things to different people, right? And what is Rose but not a part of Deathstroke's legacy? And so that's another piece of the puzzle of what we're doing with Dark Crisis.
Mateo has an interesting question. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have a say in what goes into the trades, and why are some softcover and others hardcover?
No, we don't really have a say. We talk to them about it, and we can offer suggestions, and depending on your relationship with your editor, you can talk about a lot of that stuff. But for the most part, that is the editors and collections and DC. They're the ones that plan that, and when it comes to soft covers and hard covers, it really just depends on certain things. Like Robin was a soft cover, but Deathstroke is going to be a hardcover, right? So it just kind of depends on a lot of different factors that I am not privy to, so I can't really comment on too much. But I do, when it comes to what's going to go into each trade, I let them know. We talk about it. Like if you have a good relationship with your editor, they'll know, like you're already talking about where the story is going and how it should end. So I do talk to them about what I think should go in there, but it just depends on a lot of factors.
Let's see. Wesley wants you to know he appreciates your acknowledgement of what came before. without making him feel like rereading the past books are a must. This continuous story is important to him, and I agree with that absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a big, huge DC fan, and I've been reading it my whole life, and it's crazy to be kind of running. I don't want to say running this universe, but leading this universe, right? Like, I'm a big believer that DC Comics is never just one person, right? It's never just one person telling those stories. It's a lot of people telling those stories. But part of that, I do think that history is important. And I do think the stuff that DC has done over the last 80, 85 years is very important. And so for me, when I'm telling these stories, I want to honor that past. Like what I was saying earlier, I was talking to Grant about some Dark Crisis stuff last week. And we were talking about the challenges of working on a crisis and working on an event at this level, and how it is so much about the now and the future, but also making sure you honor so much of that past. Like it's so much, there's so many plates spinning in your head working on this, but the past of DC, I also know it really well. I'm probably annoying to some other creators and to my editors sometimes because I'll be like, actually, in this issue, I definitely have done that a few times. I've had these moments where I'm like, well, see, there was a panel in a comic 15 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago at some point, and this is why I'm doing this. That has definitely come up a couple of times. It's kind of a funny thing. Like every once in a while, there'll be something where an editor will be like, "Oh, I think we should do this," and I'm like, "Well, actually, we can't do that, and here's why." And I like break down all this stuff, and it's like I can tell sometimes I drive them crazy. But I appreciate that they let me get away with it, or they humor me,
tolerate you.
Yeah, tolerate me. Yeah.
Riley wants to know how relevant is Orion being the new leader of Apocalypse to Dark Crisis, or is that going to be followed up in a different story?
It does play a role at some point. I can't get too much into it, but it does play a role at some point in Dark Crisis.
There you go, man. Absolutely. Did you read the Nightwing Superman Son of Kal-El crossover that obviously Tom was doing, and did you use that to inform their dynamic in Dark Crisis?
No, but this is why. I wrote Dark Crisis #1 a while ago, right? And that stuff just came out the last 2 weeks, right? Like this month. But I do talk to Tom. I talk to Tom about the dynamic. We've been talking about it. I think I read the script for the first part a while ago. I talk to Tom a lot, like when we're talking about Damian, because Damian has appeared in John's book a couple times, and I've read those and I've talked to Tom about them. So it has impacted it, but not in the way you're thinking. It wasn't like I read it last week and now I'm changing how I'm going to write them. I've been talking about the dynamic for a long time now, so that was more informative to it. But again, like I wrote Dark Crisis a while ago, so it's not having like a direct impact on just those 2 issues.
Now this is a good question from Jonathan. Will the death of the Justice League directly affect regular monthly titles such as Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, if all these characters are dead? And obviously you can throw in what Philip is doing with Superman, obviously.
Yeah, too. I talked to like Philip in particular. I talked to Philip. We text probably twice a week now. I'm actually going to talk to Philip tomorrow about some stuff.
I said hello. I love Philip.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. Philip, I think he's a great work on Action Comics, and I like Philip a lot. And I think Philip is a very smart, like thoughtful creator. It will not derail anybody's stories. Like no one, like what we're doing in Dark Crisis, that was important to me. I didn't want to blow up anybody else's stories, so it will not blow up anyone's stories. No one has to worry about that.
Great
will
to
it
hear,
connect at some point? Will we find, like trust me, it's going to connect at some point. But it was important to me that I not completely derail or wreck what anyone was doing. So it's going to take a minute to get there, but you're going to see where it all starts to come together.
Okay, no, that's great to hear, man. What did I see here? So you're finished with writing all Dark Crisis issues? How was that affected by some of the stuff like Wonder Girl ending?
I haven't finished writing it. Like I haven't written the ending yet, but I know the ending. Like I wrote a very detailed outline of what I wanted to do, and I've only made a few changes to it. Like I have a whiteboard here behind my desk that's on the other side that has all the issues, all the stuff we're doing, and every once in a while something will come up and I'll make a little note to myself to make sure when I get there to make some changes and stuff. Wonder Girl ending did not impact it. I think I knew about Wonder Girl ending far enough in advance that I was able to incorporate some of the stuff, and like Trial of the Amazons is important for DC, and there's a scene in Dark Crisis #1 that talks about what happens in Trial of the Amazons, again without getting into spoilers. So I talked to the editors of the Wonder Woman books and gave them what I was working on, and I pitched them everything. We talked about everything, so it's all still connected. That book ending did not impact what I'm doing at all.
Okay. I want to get back up to the question because it was a good one. Here we go. Jesse. So there's some major talent writing in the road to Dark Crisis. How do you even go about picking certain writers to write certain characters in the lead up to a crisis? Yeah, the ancillary one shots and stuff.
I talked to a lot of creators, and it's a mix of things, right? So it's like, in the Road to story, like I'll use Philip as the example, right? Like Philip is really good at world building, and I think this kind of like, I'm not sure how to word it, but essentially, like, I knew I needed someone to write Pariah and write this like epic Pariah short, and Philip was the guy. Like I knew, I was like, this is our guy. And so with some of these, like it's just me and editorial. Like I make a list and we talk about the list, and then we reach out to those creators. And so far, everyone has said yes. So, in some cases, so I'll give you an example. Like I co-wrote Atalia's story with Nadia back in November, and then she's also doing Atalia's story that's in the Shadow Warzone special. And that all came about because I had Nadia openly talked about loving Talia on Twitter, and then I read something of theirs. I read a Wonder Woman short of theirs, and then I just emailed her and was like, "Hey, listen, I'm working on this Talia stuff. I know you love Talia. Do you want to work on it with me?" And they said yes. So sometimes it's a mix of like, I know this person loves this character, so let's go that direction, and then it's kind of fun because you're like, oh, like, what is this person going to do with this character? Like, what is this creator we know? One of the stories they're working on is written by Dan Waters, and I really like Dan Waters' work a lot. And there was one character in particular we were just like, oh, what would Dan Waters do with that character? Right. So that was why we picked them for certain things. So it just depends. But I'm very, very involved in who's doing what.
Okay. Legion of Comics wants to know, was your Batman run originally intended to be short-lived?
Yes. That was always the plan. But it's complicated. You'll see as we get deeper and deeper into stuff and the stuff that we're doing. But yeah, that was always the plan.
Let's see. I heard Thorne, the current writer of Green Lantern, is unaware of John Stewart's death in Death of the Justice League. Are there any current writers who were unaware of your plans?
Yeah, I was disappointed to hear that with Jeffrey. I thought that Jeffrey was doing a really good job on Green Lantern, and I got to read some of the stuff ahead of time they were working on, and they wrote a memo talking about what they were doing on Green Lantern. I thought they knew what we were doing, so that was kind of a surprise to me when I found out they did not know what we were doing. But for the most part, I think most of the writers do know what we're doing, or they've been aware of what's happening. But I was definitely disappointed to hear that. I feel like I owe Jeffrey many drinks and apologies at some point if I ever get to meet them in person.
I understand. Absolutely, man. Here, I'm switching banners. If you could, kids, hit the like button, and if you don't subscribe to Word Balloon Live
some of these
on YouTube, please do that as well. There you go. Let's see. Okay, a very minor question. Does Jace have the goatee in Dark Crisis? I can't tell with some of the variant covers. I thought he was clean shaven. I can't grow
let me look.
So it means let
me look, because to me he's clean shaven too. Let me look. I can just look. To me, he's clean shaven. That's how I thought he was. I did see a variant cover recently that I think was done earlier that he does not have his facial hair, or that he did have the goatee on one of the variants. But as far as I know, yeah, he's clean shaven.
Okay, fair enough. Excellent.
Yeah, I thought so. When I saw that cover too, I was like, oh, I thought he was clean shaven. So yeah.
Do you know we're coming on 90 minutes? Do you and you know me? Yeah. I don't mind doing.
Oh, I know. No, we should stop it. We should stop at the 90-minute break. But
okay, buddy.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's anything in here.
Or what's your favorite live action DC movie?
Batman Returns.
Oh, very good.
Every year on my birthday. Yeah.
Funny.
Wow. There's a lot that I like.
That's an atypical opinion. Batman Returns.
That was the beginning of my obsession with DC Comics. I was already reading DC Comics very regularly, but that was when I started going. When that movie came out, that was when I started going to the shop every week. Was when that movie came out, and so it's like me and that movie are like bonded. And so I have all kinds of Batman Returns stuff in my office you can't see right now. I have all kinds of merchandise and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Is Azrael going to have a role in Dark Crisis?
They'll have a cameo. If you've been reading Urban Legends and reading the Arkham City book,
a lot of people are commenting how much they enjoy it.
Yeah, Dan Waters is great. He's a really talented creator, and I'm really excited to see what some of the stuff Dan is doing. Any
chance for more JSA Infinity Incorporated stuff from you?
No comment.
Fair enough. Now you mentioned it earlier, but we didn't go into detail. What did you think of the new Batman movie?
I really liked it. When I saw it in the theater, I was like, it was funny because on that one, I particularly did avoid spoilers and I avoided trailers for that one in particular. I kind of want to just go into it, and when I finally went and saw it, I really liked it a lot. And it was funny how once I got out of it and I started talking to other friends that saw it, we all started liking it more while we talked about it. And I thought that was really interesting. But I loved all the performances. I mean, I am so pumped for that Penguin TV show. You have no idea. Like Colin Farrell killed it. So good. So good. But yeah, I really liked it a lot. I've been listening to music a lot. I bought the Mondo, put the album up today. I bought the album. And then Mezco released they're gonna put the toy out. I pre-ordered the toy, so I feel like that's a pretty good sign of my enjoyment of the movie. Was that today I literally bought a bunch of merchandise from it. So
that's awesome.
How much I liked it. Yeah,
that's great. Daffy wants to know: is Roy Harper getting a redesign in Dark Crisis since he's had the same suit since Rebirth, or is he also currently going by Arsenal or Red Arrow?
I feel like he's Arsenal. When Brad Meltzer was doing Justice League, with Ed Bennis, and they were calling it him Red Arrow. I guess I think ever since New 52 and Rebirth, it's still been Arsenal, right? So in my mind, it's still Arsenal or redesign. I don't know. He's in Dark Crisis. I'll have to check and see. I don't think they'll give him a complete redesign. Let me ask you this. What's the custom of Arsenals that you like the most? Because doing Infinite Frontier with him, I did a ton of research on his look because there was a scene where we were going to show a bunch of different versions of him at one point. I think we showed part of it, like the constructs he made were all different versions of him across different eras. And so I have my feelings on what I think is the best Roy Harper costume. So I totally want to hear what everyone else's is. You can just tell me on Twitter. You can tell me on Twitter after.
I'm going to tell you now.
Which one?
I love the original uniform, man. I'm sorry. I'm a Speedy guy.
You're talking about the Speedy one? Oh,
yeah,
my God.
And that was cool. That's boring. I know. Whatever.
No. It's still cool.
I love him, man.
I remember the two 90s costumes he had was the purple one. And then he had that one that was the well, I mean, the purple one is better than the one that was the gold and yellow one with the big shoulder pads and stuff. Like, that one wasn't great.
No.
I definitely wasn't a fan of the hat. I know some people like the hat. I wasn't a fan of Roy wearing the hat. But I don't mind the costume he's wearing. I liked the Red Arrow one that he was doing during that Justice League story. But yeah, getting a redesign for him, that's interesting. Yeah, okay.
Ray is concerned, and I don't expect you to necessarily answer this question, but as he points out, Damian seems to be suffering the loss of Alfred. Now Roz, and following that Bruce will die, how heavily affected will he be going to get during Dark Crisis? Yeah, poor Damian.
A lot. I mean, you got to read. There's a lot of Damian stuff coming. There's a lot of stuff with Damian coming. So I would definitely read Shadow War. Start there. I think if you read Shadow War, you'll see where we're going.
Okay, and Daffy says his favorite is probably the Young Justice cartoon.
That one is cool. You talking about the one he's wearing in the first episode of Young Justice? That one's great. So. Yeah, that was a good one. I like that one.
And the one he had in Outsiders, sure. There you go. And Daffy, not a fan of the hat. I understand. Oh, any plans for Respawn beyond Shadow War?
No, I would say read Shadow War.
Attaboy. Very good.
Yeah, read Shadow War.
Radium Theater Productions. Josh and John, was wondering how much your work with Darkseid and Infinite Crisis picked up from your work on Justice League Odyssey, especially hiding in the Pocket Universe.
A lot, because some of the stuff we were planning with Darkseid that led into Death Metal, some of that sort of, we didn't do all of it that we had planned originally. And so, because originally, remember, it was supposed to be Odyssey, Dark, and Justice League was going to connect, and it does in a lot of ways, and some of the Darkseid stuff, but some of the Darkseid stuff we didn't get to play with. And so when we were getting to the end of Death Metal, we knew there was some Darkseid stuff left over, and so that stuff we ended up, when you actually read the end of Death Metal, you can see that we tease a lot of stuff with him. And obviously, if you read Infinite Frontier 0, we picked up those pieces. So it was definitely back of my mind. I mean, when I started working on Dark Crisis, I made a list of like everything I'd worked on at DC, and I went through looking for anything and double checking stuff. And so a lot of the pieces that we left on the table from Odyssey, that stuff did get picked up for this story.
Okay. Well, as we wrap up again, Shadow War starting at the end of this month.
Yeah, Shadow War comes out the last week of March, and then a few weeks later we have Justice League 75, and then a few weeks after that, we have the Free Comic Book Day issue, which is the Dark Crisis 0, and then we dive into the Road to Dark Crisis one-shot that comes out at the end of May, and then we have Dark Crisis starting in June. I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of cool stuff coming, and there are things coming with Dark Crisis that are really fun and really exciting. And again, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what people see once we start really getting into it, because it is not what you expect. Like, I'm always seeing people talk about what they think it's going to be and making these predictions and talking about what it is. And I'm like, oh boy, they're going to be in for a surprise when they read this book, because it is not what I think people think it's going to be. It's very, very interesting to see, and it's like, as I'm getting closer to write the ending now, right? Like, it's so like I'm now close to writing the end of the story, so it's really interesting, to see sort of the reactions to stuff, and just knowing. It's always kind of funny because it's like I know how it's almost interesting. It's like I know how the story ends, right? And so seeing how people are reacting to it, how they're engaging with it, it's very interesting knowing what the ending is going to be and how they're going to react. And once we pull some of those rugs out from under them, like how it all comes together.
Outstanding, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited, Josh. That's terrific. Very, very thrilled with what we got in the immediate future and in the long distance future for the rest of 2022. And
there's a lot of really great stuff coming from DC. I think people will be surprised by a lot of stuff we have going on, and just wait and see. It's gonna be great. I mean, the stuff that we're working on now for this year, and the stuff that we're talking about for next year, and a lot of the stuff for the future of DC, it's really exciting.
Between Black Label and Infinite Frontier and everything that DC's been putting out the last couple of years, when a lot of people were, as you said, back when Marvel went bankrupt and everything, people weren't sure what the future was going to be for DC. It's really great how all the creatives have reacted with really quality stuff. And
editorial too, editorial really has busted their ass, the last 2 years on a lot of this stuff, and have really done really great work and have put a lot of passion into these projects. And so I think, you're seeing some of that now, but it's just going to keep growing. I think people will be really surprised where things are going. It's very, again, it is so fascinating to watch how people react to some of the stuff we're doing, knowing that some of it, again, is like misdirection on purpose. It's been really interesting. But yeah, I'm really excited. I hope people check this stuff out, and I hope you guys, please pre-order these books. That really helps your comic shops out. That's how I think we should end this, is that, I worked at a comic book store for 10 years. I worked at 3 different stores for 10 years, and my brain is still in that shop sometimes, still at that counter. And I think now, with the way comics are now, doing those pre-orders, and honestly, just talking to your comic book store about the stuff that you like, I think really, really helps. Not only the books, but it really helps your retailer and your shop out. So if you can do that, yeah.
100%, man. No, absolutely. You got to let them know what to order and everything, and then what you're liking.
Support those retailers. Those retailers are busting their ass trying to make sure that you guys get your books every week too. So, and some of the best ways to support them is not just to buy those books, but to let them know that you want to buy those books.
Absolutely, man. No, very good point. Always a pleasure, buddy. Let's
thank you so much.
When Dark Crisis is up and running, and maybe mid.
Let's get going. And to everyone that came in and listened, thank you so much. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. I will try next time. I hope some of this was helpful for you.
Absolutely, and maybe hit Josh up on Twitter with some of these questions.
Sometimes I answer. A lot of times I'm not on there, so I won't answer everything, but I'll try. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening and watching. Hopefully, Kari Randolph tomorrow night on Word Balloon.
Oh, Kari, yes, Kari's dope.
Man, we have been circling each other literally for years, and it's
Kari
like,
is
I love Kari. I love his art. I love the guy, and so finally, hopefully tomorrow night. And I also pre-recorded a fast conversation with Brad Meltzer. We do talk comics in there as well about The Lightning Rod, his brand new novel, which is excellent.
I gotta read it. You gotta tell them next time we talk to them. I love The Millionaires. Millionaires is a great book.
There you go. Absolutely, man.
Great book.
So. All right, and until next time, everybody, thanks. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy.